So Zachary, where was this picture taken?
I think that was at elementary school in the area. So I want to say it's, I'll find the name, but it's the second time that we went there, and the students actually talk about legacy projects, and it's a variety of different buildings or spaces or cultural parks like zoos and things like that, botanical gardens that create a community. And so they each picked one and they had to learn the history of it and then make a model of it and share their story. So this is just us talking about something that may be a legacy project in the future, kind of talking about how they could do that.
They're so cute. They're just like absorbing it like a sponge.
Yeah, they're I think it was third grade, but they were so intelligent. They had great questions. A lot of their parents are in the industry too. That was probably the most surprising thing, was how much they knew and how informed their questions were. But unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that, but I'm definitely looking forward to it next time I get back out there.
So we are going to give everyone about 3 more minutes and then we'll start.
Anca, were you on the Cambridge side when you were in Boston, or were in Boston proper?
No, I lived in Roslindale, which is
a
smaller community.
Yeah. I lived in Jamaica Plain, actually. So, yeah.
I know exactly where it is. We used to go to this really cool restaurant in Jamaica Plain. It was pretty close, about 10 minutes probably from our house. And
the Arboretum I used to go to a lot too.
I know.
In Roslindale. Yeah, good times.
Yeah, I worked in Newton Center for DRA Architects, who is it was doing mostly educational architecture, but as I understand now, they moved. Our office used to be in a very cool church, but I think the seminary that owned the church reclaimed the church now, and they had to move in Waltham, from what I heard.
Okay, we have Allie.
By the way. Sorry.
We should have Allie joining us now. Let's see. Allie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Hi, you made it.
I did. I restarted my computer twice, so I guess that was the trick of the day.
Technology is wonderful until it's not.
That's right.
Well, do you have your coffee yet?
Yeah. Thankfully, that's one good thing.
So we are, let's see, we have Shanna Smith, who's helping out for Deirdre until she jumps on. So she'll be joining us momentarily. So let's go ahead and start in about 1 minute, give a few more people the opportunity to jump on.
Allison, did you get your coffee delivered today?
My what?
Your coffee delivered?
Nope.
Last time we were on our office meeting, I think your son brought you some coffee.
Oh, yes. That will happen later today.
Okay.
Yes.
The greatest gift ever.
Yes. Yes. Teach him young.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it is 9:03, so we want to be respectful of everyone's time. This is recorded, so anyone who could not watch live right now can watch at as our schedule allows, and we do post them on our website. So let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for our 4th episode of Diversity Through Design. This is promoting architecture to our youth. I am Debbie Arredondo, our monitor for today, and also our IIDA's chapter vice president of forums. Helping me today with Q&A is our chapter's president, Ali Allred. Thank you, Ali, for helping out today. I want to give a special thank you to our episode sponsor, which is Work Program Architects, also known as WPA. Thank you, WPA, for being so supportive through this series and for being an ally to our community. I also want to remind you that you can donate to Teens with a Purpose. You can find the link on our website or in the email that you received when you registered. And we also want to invite you, anyone who is interested, to put your comments or your questions in our chat feature, and we will do our best to answer any of the questions that you have, and to also continue to follow us on social media. That's where we do a lot of our postings for future things that we'd like to talk about, things that you are interested that maybe we can also add to our year. So please follow us. We love your feedback. Many paths can lead to an A&D career, and we found that most roads were mostly traditional. Growing up with family members who were practicing architects, engineers, designers, or in construction had helped spark an interest early on. Others, a good majority were minority backgrounds, chose architecture or design as a major in college, and they expressed to us that they had wished they had more of an introduction prior. So in today's episode about promoting architecture to our youth, we will discuss why there isn't enough promotion of architecture and design early in our public schools, and how the lack of exposure early on might hold back some of our children, and how we as a community can try and change that. We will hear from our guest panelists on how they teach, inspire, and create programs to help and gain exposure to this wonderful profession early on. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and start with Zachary. Zachary, can you please give us a brief description of who you are, where you work, and share in which ways your firm or your organization that you participate in can help promote architecture and design to our youth?
Sure. So my name is Zachary, or Zach. From New York originally, and I went to Hampton University in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, and I currently work at Work Program Architects in Norfolk, Virginia. We do a variety of architecture, commercial, residential, and we also do urban design as well. So we've used all of those ways as a way to get out into the community, and we try and share, just like you were saying, share a lot on Instagram, just so people can keep up. We answer a lot of questions. We host, we've had some people ask us if their kids could come for a day. So we host them and let them play in like the virtual reality machine, ask a bunch of questions. And those are just some of the ways that we started to do that.
Thank you. Anca, welcome. Can you please give us a brief description of who you are, who you work with, and some of the organizations you participate to help promote architecture and design to our youth?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me in this panel, this wonderful panel. I'm very happy to be here with all the colleagues. So I hike all the way from Romania, and originally I was born there, and I did go to architecture school there. I did a master's in Chicago. And then I kind of traveled all over the United States with my family, and worked in Pasadena, California, Boston, Massachusetts, and Augusta, Georgia. And now I'm here in Richmond. I work at Baskervill currently. I'm the director of higher ed studio, and I actually participate very actively in the ACE Mentor organization, which is promoting architecture, construction, and engineering to students in the K-12 system. So we do a lot of project-based work with the students, and we have mentor volunteers. I'm actually on the board of the ACE RVA at this point, and I've been for 2 years on the board, and I've been 9 years before that a mentor for ACE, for the ACE organization in the Richmond area. And so we promote really project-based learning. We do a lot of curriculum. We create, you know, adapted to the schools we work with.
Thank you, Anca. Laura, hello, good morning. Can you please give us a brief description of who you are, where you work, and what kind of organizations you participate to help promote architecture and design to our youth?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's a wonderful group. I am a practicing architect. I own a very small architecture firm in Virginia Beach. And for the past 4.5 years, I've been an assistant professor at Hampton University. I did some teaching at the Art Institute as well as NC State prior to Hampton. Immediately when I started at Hampton, I realized that the local younger students really needed a place where they could learn about architecture. You might not know, but Hampton is only one of 3 schools of architecture in the state of Virginia. The other 2 being the University of Virginia and Virginia Tech, all the way out in Blacksburg. And they both have summer programs. And I really felt like we needed to have a summer program that was affordable and accessible to youth in Hampton Roads. So I started ArchiCamp, and we had our 2nd year this past summer, and it was all virtual. And so far it's just going really, really well. There's a ton of interest, and I'm pleased to be doing it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Richard.
Hey, Debbie.
Can you please give us a brief description of who you are, where you work, and what kind of organizations you participate to promote architecture and design to our youth?
Sure. Yeah, well, thanks again for having me too. I'm excited to be here this morning, even though it's a little early and everyone was talking about coffee before our call officially joined. I actually work at ENV Design here in Richmond, Virginia. We're located in Manchester, and we primarily focus on corporate workplace interiors, and we also dabble in multifamily and some light healthcare as well. I came to Richmond, Virginia to pursue a master's degree in interior design. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I was in Boston, Massachusetts before this, but I was working in the nonprofit sector, specifically education, before transitioning into design. So it's been an interesting path. I've touched on a lot of different design institutions and art organizations along the way. Even thinking about my start in Cleveland, mentoring students in the ACE program, same with Anca, but in a different context. And then now here in Richmond, now working at BCU as an adjunct faculty member in the Arts Foundation program. It's been interesting too, just thinking about the topics that we're sort of going over today. And sort of thinking through my own students' levels of access and questions coming from various high schools around the country, and now coming into an arts institution and sort of navigating this new space and learning through, project design. It's definitely been really rewarding. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and come back to Deirdre when she joins us, and I'll start with a few questions that we had. So Zachary, I understand that you're part of Young Architects Forum, which is also known as YAF, a program that addresses the important issues to recently licensed architects. What do you suggest we as a community of architects and designers do more to help bridge focus and interest to high schoolers to our profession?
So yes, thank you for mentioning that. I should have mentioned it earlier, the Young Architects Forum. But one of the 3 things that we're very excited to do is participate in the community. The other 2 things are to educate and to have fun. And that's really the main goal. And we try and do that in regards to the youth through career days. We've connected with the students at Hampton University just this past year, I believe, to help out for their haunted house. So one of our events separate from the students was to have a pumpkin carving contest, and then we donated those pumpkins to their haunted house. And they seem to really enjoy that. So it doesn't have to be too specific to architecture, but just making yourself available. And individually, we've reviewed resumes from certain students and tried to give them some advice. I just actually got one from Corey Osman. I'm not sure if you may know him, Laura, but yeah, he responded and updated his resume very quickly. So just trying to kind of be there as in the best way that we can.
Thank you. Anca, can you please share with us, you had mentioned that you are on the board of directors for ACE RVA. Can you explain to us what that ACE mentorship program is and how we can get involved as an A&D community?
Of course. Yeah, I'm happy. This year, I'm actually the mentor liaison for Richmond ACE or ACE RVA. And I will share with you, so the mission of ACE, and I'm talking here about ACE National, is to engage, excite, and enlighten high school students to pursue careers in architecture, engineering, and construction through mentoring and to support their continued advancement in the industry. So again, the mission of ACE doesn't stop at the high school level. We envision continuing the relationships with our mentors and our students throughout their career. And as a matter of fact, with Richmond, the Richmond organization ACE RVA is actually proud to have 2 former ACE students that are now mentors in our chapter. So if you look up acementor.org, there's this website that basically posts everything about ACE. And it talks about the students that participate, the mentor and the volunteers, the educators. It has literature and forms, it has testimonials, and it has contact information. Now, if you dig a little bit further and you look for ACE Mentor affiliates and go under Richmond, or just simply Google ACE Mentor RVA, you will get to this Richmond chapter page where you find tabs that describe who we are. You will find my name there and how to get involved and how to donate, how to help, how you will find things about what we've done in the past and how we're envisioning to continue our efforts for the future. And one of the things that I want to encourage everybody, we need not just sponsors and mentors, we also need people that can connect us to particular schools. We have done actually programs at Highland Springs High School for a number of years, Hermitage High School for a number of years. We have done in the past year a program at LC Bird. However, obviously with COVID, we've been impacted by it, and we're now resuming our connection to LC Bird since Chesterfield. I think their technical centers resumed activity a week ago. So we just had a board meeting last night. We are very excited to resume our connection and restart our program for the current year. The other thing I wanted to just mention is that also Baskervill is running their own program. For a number of years now, and I think it's more than 10, Baskervill has run an Explorer program. And this is also dedicated to students. And I think, you know, they've been having participation every year from multiple students from multiple schools. This year, I'm not sure what we'll decide to do, obviously, because of COVID, but this, both programs are originally, both ACE and the Explorer are originally designed to be in person. With ACE National, we've been able to do some programs on Zoom. But again, I think most of the schools that we are connected to are a little bit challenged by technology issues. So we haven't quite been able to connect at the level of a sustainable program yet.
And are those technology issues, you said you can't connect, is that because they're probably not funded in the way that they're supposed to be to have access for that?
Well, I think it depends on the school system, and it has to do with the kids' access to technology more than anything, I think. Mm-hmm. So again, I think right now, from what we're hearing from the schools we're connected with, they have issues with the kids really connecting for class. So again, that's, you know, being able to connect to the actually mandated curriculum is more important to them than connecting at this point to a kind of a volunteer-based, mentor-based type of instruction.
Hmm. Interesting. So I see that we have Deirdre Love here with us. So Deirdre, if you can hear us, you're on mute, and we'd love to introduce you. Still on mute. There we go.
Oops. There we go.
Perfect, perfect.
Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Welcome, Deirdre, to our panel.
A rough start.
It happens to all of us. Deirdre, I would like to introduce you to everyone. Do you mind giving us a brief description of who you are, where you work, and what kind of firm or what kind of organization you promote to help the youth with architecture and design?
Sure. Of course, my name is Deirdre Love. I'm the founder and executive director for Teens with a Purpose. And our organization is a creative youth development organization with a mission to create a platform to empower young people to use their voice, creativity, reflection, and action to impact their lives, their peers' lives, and influence transformation in their community using the arts and their voice and their actions, of course. So the kinds of things that we do that connects with your mission here is getting behind young people, making sure they're exposed to different educational fields, career fields, different aspects of art, social justice work, but most importantly, I feel that they get to do something to influence that thing that we're introducing them to. For example, with social justice work, young people have taken their poetry and spoken to legislators about changes that they want to see happen in a poetic way to influence change. With design, we have what is called a safe creative community space that's recently been named Purpose Park. And young people decided they needed this space. They needed a place to grow. They needed food in this community. And So we started the project, but since the very beginning, we connected our project with that critical design aspect. And so we worked with Virginia Tech on laying out a design for that space. So they worked with experts on getting the understanding of designing the spaces, not just how it looks, but how it functions. And is it meeting the needs of people? And is it meeting you where you are? So I don't think, because it happened seamlessly and naturally, I don't think they look at it as I'm being influenced by this or that, I'm having this opportunity. It's happening organically. We worked just recently with Open Norfolk on further development in the space. So they work shoulder to shoulder with engineers and architects, and every meeting that we had about what should happen next, a young person was standing right there weighing in on what that should be, and seeing people that seeing a person or two that looks like them in that field, and also seeing that there is not much diversity in their eyes and my eyes in the field could influence it. But it's nothing that we really push. We put it in front of them and have conversation, dialogue around it, but having that hands-on experience to say, I have an idea about that, and having people in our network that are connected with all these different aspects of work and life and development is really important to us to influencing change.
Thank you. And you mentioned visibility, and I know that in our chats with Zachary, he had mentioned how important it is to be visible in front of these young kids, young children. And so, we saw on social media, we saw the Open Norfolk all over, and it just looked great. And we saw people coming together and working together, collaborating. And so seeing that from start to finish was something I think, our design community got really excited about to be a part of. So when you mentioned that made me think about what Zachary was telling us in our discussions earlier, is how important it is to be visible in front of our young youth, to show them these professions and these just organic conversations about, maybe they don't have a family member, but now they're seeing it, and so they can be exposed to it in this special way. So thank you. I want to move on to Laura. I have a question for you. So you held the second annual Hampton University Architecture Camp program for middle school students, and it is explained as an introduction for local middle school students to the world of architecture. And to serve as a bridge between Hampton University and local communities, can you tell us more about this program and how it became to be?
Sure. Well, the title is ArchiCamp, and that is very intentional. I teach the young students that architects are superheroes, and not in kind of the conventional way, but kind of in the way that Deirdre was talking about, empowering these students to know that they have a voice in the community, and that oftentimes architects' voices are maybe smaller than some of the other voices, but they're very powerful. And so I started ArchiCamp as a way to reach out to mostly students in underserved communities in the area that didn't have a place to go to learn about architecture. And most of these students, they didn't have a very comprehensive understanding. For example, when I did interviews, one student thought that architecture was archaeology, which I thought was kind of a little funny, but she turned out to be one of the best students. And so it's about empowering, and it's about raising awareness. But I tell you what, we have an intensive week, and these students who know nothing about architecture, except for what they see on the reality TV shows, start with paper and a pencil, and they end up making models and making drawings and presenting to a real client. This past year, I involved one client who actually graduated from Hampton, and she has a nonprofit and she wants to build a community center. So my ArchiCamp students actually designed part of her community center for her and presented it to her on the last day. And she was brought to tears at one point with their thoughtfulness. It's just so exciting to see that their minds are opened and they're using their creativity to work on a quote unquote real project that may indeed happen someday.
That's very cool. Over to Richard. Richard, you are a designer at E&B. Can you share with us why you decided to also teach at VCU this year, and what programs VCU engages with high school students in the community?
Sure. Well, yeah, luckily I work at a firm that allows me to flex into teaching during the middle of the day. So shout out to E&B, and I know you all are watching, so thank you. I think, one thing that I was thinking about too, just based on our past conversations, is the sort of culture of mentorship that we're kind of now talking about, I think, as a group too. And it's sort of discipline agnostic, and especially me being a sort of career changer, kind of going from the nonprofit world into the design world, I think everything starts with mentorship. And I really have felt that at my firm. So I think I'm lucky in that regard, but sort of translating that into the classroom is something that I always am striving to do. How do you bring a sort of practice focus into an academic context? And so, meeting my students where they're at, especially during COVID, changing curriculum and sort of allowing them to feel comfortable with the work they're doing is something that is sort of always on my radar, at least right now. And I think it all kind of blends together, especially when you're going from Zoom call to Zoom classroom, I guess. And I think, sort of to comment on how VCU engages with community, and specifically youth. This was something that I was more involved with when I was actually a grad student, but there is a program called the Middle of Broad Studio that's an interdisciplinary studio that works with different community partners, and it's very much set up as a sort of design studio that focuses on pro bono design services for different clients around Richmond. They partner with the Storefront for Community Design, and then they also have a satellite sort of studio called Sixpick, which is on the north side of Richmond, that has a specific focus on mentoring young people in architecture and design. And so I think VCU really has a nice blend of both being a public institution, which is what attracted me to it. Education is so expensive these days, and to think about design education and sort of access, I think institutions like VCU and a lot of schools in Virginia already are positioning themselves to make education more accessible. But beyond that, they are also, sort of spearheading these really great grassroots programs on the grounds too. So. I think you're on mute, Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. And I'd like to remind everyone watching that you can ask questions at any time in our chat feature, and we'll try our best to answer those with the time that we have. So I'd like to ask Deirdre, with Teens with a Purpose, can you share how you started with Teens with a Purpose, how you funded the program, and what your experience has been with the A&D community over the years?
So started before the organization started, we were a ministry actually at the Basilica of St. Mary's in Norfolk, and we had the church had a fund from the state to fund the work that we were doing. And what we originally started was an AIDS ministry where teenagers were trained by me on the evidence informed interventions around HIV/AIDS, and then they would young it up using art and poetry, as long as they didn't lose the fidelity of the information, and we go into the community and share it with peers. Fast forward, that was the late 1990s. The pandemic wasn't what it was, and we had a lot of young people really feeling empowered by seeing that they could make a difference with their voice, with their art, and with information. And so the funding went away, and that was the point where the church wasn't doing that ministry any longer. And that was when I formed the nonprofit organization to keep the work going. And at that stage, it was the question to the young people, okay, we get to redefine ourselves. What do you want to, who are we, and are we changing? And that was the point where they said, we don't want to limit ourselves to one cause. We want to stay open to whatever things we want to influence with our voice and knowledge and creativity. So we edited the mission. The next funding that we had was, I was a subcontractor and trying to do full-time work in corporate America and run beginning a nonprofit organization. So at that stage, it was really just difficult, as most businesses are in the start. And once we became the residents at the Vivian C. Mason Art Center, that was now the Art and Technology Center for Teens, a lot of doors open because we had more space. We had access to the community, and just was able to get more involved in different initiatives. So the work really blossomed from there. Really, for the projects that we do that connect with design and architecture, it was in 2013 was our first time being involved with that, when the young people wanted a garden and we had nothing but parking islands in the back. And we connected with an engineer, and he did like some workshops with them about how to build and how to create it. And we had 2 raised parking islands. That was our garden. And it we learned naturally. We studied together and figured things out together. And it was a lot of enthusiasm around that. And the next phase that where design and architecture really came into play with us was in 2016, when one of the young men who lives in the community that we serve said that, looked at that half-acre gravel lot and asked, Mama D, can we have grass? Can we grow something? And talked about what it looked like to the community, what it felt like, and what other communities have that he doesn't have, because we go all around the country, so they've seen a lot. And at that point, we knew we needed partners. That's when Virginia Tech came in with, their landscape architect department and started working with us. And that's, that was the beginning of us seeing the connection to design and community building, and working with people who did not try to impose their ideas on us, but listen to everything we said, where we had the opportunity to work right beside them. And the young people and myself, we understood when they said, well, let's study the way people walk through that space. So you asked for paths, but let's make the paths connect with what is happening right now and what is needed. So the light bulbs went on, and part of the things that, they said, well, we want to have edible gardens, and we want to have something to absorb the rain because there's a lot of flooding in this area. And then they, the landscape architects again, well, let's look at the land that you have. Where is the most likely place? Where can we build up to reduce the rain? And so all the little clicks along the way, like yes, we want to make it beautiful, but we want to make it intentional. And they talked about the noise, and they talked about pollution, and it made you more interested in the other things your vegetable garden is doing besides providing food, is cleaning, the pollutants out of the air. And so it just really developed one step at a time, and funding was really limited. We had a lot of volunteer funding initially, and over the years, that's changed. Actually, because of COVID and our desire to do programming outdoors for this vulnerable community, I reached out to Open Norfolk, and they said, your project would be a great project to come under that, and we can help with the next stage of your development. And they looked at our design and worked beside us to give us what we had already knew we needed. It was completing the design plan, but unfortunately, we're experiencing a pandemic, but fortunately, we're in a city that said, let's figure out what we need to do for people and work with people who are already doing it. And so it just really continues. And I hope that we'll, stay on this train and develop more young people interested in the field. But our approach is always organic, and it happened out of need, out of growth, out of what young people wanted, out of what the community wanted and needed, and wanting to add knowledge to the knowledge we already had ourselves.
Yeah, and I loved how you mentioned the design community that came and helped. Their first thing was to listen, right? And that really echoes a lot of what our past panelists have shared, Mel just in the last one, or just talking about how some of the first thing that they do when they have this community approach to a project is to really just not speak at all and just to listen to the needs of their actual clients. So I think that's something really important that we need to remember as, A&D professionals. So this is an open question to all. What kind of elective should high school students and even middle school students be focusing to prepare, or what might those electives spark as an interest in A&D? Of course, we could talk about CAD, but some schools don't have those. So what other type of courses would spark or create some kind of interest early on?
I can speak a little bit to that because I have reached out to my partners and asked them what they have right now, and there's not much. It's hard to put architecture in a box. It's hard to put it in art. It's hard to put it in math. It's hard to put it in science, because really what it is, and this goes for all design, is that it's all interdisciplinary. So I know at Hampton, I've been working on creating electives that are interdisciplinary. And I'm thinking that it would be really fantastic if K-12 had interdisciplinary classes as well, that didn't necessarily fit into a box. Ones that focused on projects, because we as designers, we learn through project work. That's how we do our thinking. So I don't know what the answer is in terms of what it would be called, but something that combined a couple of different teachers and got students working on a project, I think would be really helpful for those interested in design.
That was exactly what I thought, and I'm looking through the lens of the young people around me, and I know what sparks interest is. I want to build that, or I want to create that. So if it's something that says you get to create something, and then if it's interdisciplinary, you know, like just how I mentioned in our project, all these different disciplines came into play in their lives in the project that we had. So I know young people want to be the creators of, and so them the chance to be in front of something. But if it's interdisciplinary, that would really be great, because they'd be learning from every angle, and you know, though you want them to gravitate towards one, you want to expose young people to everything, because you don't know when they will change their mind along their educational path and say, oh, that thing I learned back then, it's really interesting. Maybe that's what I'm gonna actually focus on. So
I wonder if that's on the curriculum level, because you have these classes that have to be in a box, and they're, you know, the testing is associated with that. But then, you know, many of us were in math class and you're learning some kind of equation and you wonder, well, why do I need to know this? Because it's on the SOL is the answer that you get, not because this is how you'll use it in the real world. So then how do you know where to store it in your brain, in your library of things I can use in the future? You don't. And then you get frustrated and kind of bitter about having to take that class. Whereas if you had something interdisciplinary, then now you know what to do with that information. And that, I think.
I
really
wonder if
interesting.
schools wouldn't be amenable to taking, say, art and making it art and design, or having another class, one is art and the other one is art and design, so that it doesn't have to fit into an SOL necessarily, but it allows for that project-based interdisciplinary.
One of the exercises that we do with AIDS is, to give you just one example, do a cost simulation, a cost estimation simulation, where we actually, after the students have developed their project and are a little bit advanced with having floor plans and elevations, we ask them to do takeoffs and estimate the cost of their building that they are doing. And so in that, obviously, geometry and calculations, algebra are also involved. And that's how they get to see the connection between what they do in math and what they how do they apply that in the real world. And that we got tremendous, excellent feedback from all the students on this, and how helpful it was to really make them see why they need certain skills that they learn in school. So I think doing more efforts like this and being really deliberate in connecting these more abstract things that they do or learn in school with the more practical things is really illuminating for a lot of them.
Our next question is, it's really important for architecture firms and design firms to reach out and engage in their local communities, creating opportunities for students to see firsthand where they could be in 5 to 10 years. So what kind of activities could we be doing locally to create these types of outreach? And obviously the ones that we've mentioned are already great things to engage in. So I will say that I'm seeing more and more firms, like Anca, you were saying Baskervill has created one for themselves. And so, I'm curious to see what other ideas you have for us.
One of the things that we do with AIDS is we organize not just firm visits, but also construction site visits. So the students can see, what are the daily activities in a firm. We do like a half a day visit or a 2 or 3 hour visit where, they get exposed to, say, a design charrette or some kind of design discussion that we have with one of the firms they're visiting. We are also, when they are present at construction site, they get the superintendent of works, walk them through the site, describe the different activities, explain what an electrician is doing versus what an electrical engineer is doing. We also organize visits, not just in architecture firms, but also in engineering firms, and show them how, for example, visiting Timmons as a civil engineer in RVA, is different than the work that an architecture office does. We show the materials. Last time we had a firm visit, it was actually a few years ago when we were able to do a BCWH visit, and they had a lot of fun working with materials, being exposed to actual interior design, fabrics and materials and tiles and base and the colors, and learn how we actually put together binders for clients. So they saw, you know, some of the things that they don't learn in school and they never really were, you know, exposed to or even thought possible. They kind of learned how we do this, and they were really very enthusiastic.
I just wanted to echo the ACE mentorship experience, again, just coming from Cleveland, similar but kind of different experience. I think having professionals in the classroom, I think is key. And then also the sort of reciprocity of sort of students going back into these architectural spaces or sites is also really critical as well. Just thinking about my own experiences as a young person being interested in design, the ones that I remember are going to construction sites very vividly. So how we can create those similar experiences for other people, I think is a really great idea. One thing I'll mention too, just based on my previous work in education, is sort of thinking about community-based education. And so how do we create more organic ways of students or young people being exposed to different creative professions? And I think just echoing Deirdre before, you know, not only exposing them to design, but sort of thinking about other creative methods just to get, you know, students focused and thinking in different ways, I think is a really great way for our profession to engage. And so if we can also think not only about design, but sort of supporting other creative professions, I think that would also just be helpful in general as the A&D community.
And with ArchiCamp, I want to continue to encourage firm partners. Over the course of the 2 years, I've had people join me during the week from VMDO, from Baskervill, and also just recently from NCARB, which is the National Council of, not NCARB, gosh darn it.
ARE?
No, sorry, the Minority Architects. NOMA, so National Organization for Minority Architects. Sorry about that. So they joined us as well. Virtually, you can have people from all over the world join. And so I want to encourage firms to participate in ArchiCamp, because from what I've heard, those firms that have participated get just as much out of it as we get from them.
Thank you. We want to continue to promote everyone's organizations and programs. So please follow us on social media. We do like to promote these programs. We do want to continue the discussion. And if anyone watching have any ideas of how we can further get connected, please reach out to us. That way we can better serve our community. So another question we had was, you know, in regards to challenges reaching out to K through 12 in public schools, how do we get kids to give them the opportunity to learn more about the things like ArchiCamp? Like, how do we reach that age demographic? Is that something that we, you know, one-on-one directly have conversations with those public schools in elementary or middle school?
I do everything one-on-one, and what I'm really realizing is that there's tremendous interest. Like I don't do anything except talk to a couple of partner schools or programs, and I have 20 kids off the bat. But, you know, I would love to, if we're staying virtual, extend it to other cities, Richmond, Petersburg. And I'm actually not sure of the best platform other than maybe social media. and getting a good website up there. But the interest is out there. These kids want to do architecture and design. There's no doubt about it.
And I agree about media and the relationships you have with schools, but if you have any images of you actually doing work with young people, I mean, if you don't have a photo release of their backs doing it, young people are more influenced by what you do as adults, what we do over what we say we'll do. So say we have this great camp, that sounds great, and adults telling me, and I'm not sure if I'm interested if you didn't catch my attention. But if you say I have this great camp and you show Rich right beside somebody doing something and the teenager is smiling and having a good time doing whatever this thing is that we want to bring more people into, I think that always helps. Young people really want us to prove to them or show them that it's not about us. It's not about you and design. It's about them and something that they're going to want to be involved in.
Thank you. I do have one more question. I know we're wrapping up, but a lot of firms have been looking to get more involved in justice, equality, diversity, and inclusion efforts within the organizations. What advice do you give to those committees who are just getting started?
The first thing that I always say is I know a lot is happening in the country and people are really caring about that, and that's at the front. Say where you really are right now. Like I'm making this up. My industry has such a low amount of diversity and inclusion, and we really want to change that. Be honest about where you are and not not make whatever you're trying to do sound like we want to add to what we have. If you don't have it, I don't have it, and we need it, and we haven't been inviting, and we realize that. I think a big thing is to really be open and ask people to the table always who would be on the receiving end of what you offer, to be to be an equal valued partner in whatever you're doing. So if you want to bring a certain group in, don't bring them in just to listen, but bring them in with equal weight in the conversation, like you're doing here today. I think this is a good model of how to bring voices in and to show a true interest in diversity and bringing different voices to the table from all different aspects. So my advice is always tell the truth about where you are right now.
Because it's more than just about numbers. I think the key word is equity. And I think firms have to realize that that's different than just bumping up numbers.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we started realizing with ACE is that it is really important to start addressing the K-12 kind of involvement at the middle school level. The ACE traditionally started with mentorship at the high school level, and I think it was because it sort of worked better with the high school curriculum, if you will, and with the fact that they had more electives like after hours and such, and we could easily fit programs. But the more the board realizes, some of this experience and incorporates some of this experience in our further curriculum development thoughts, we realize that we have to start earlier. The schools, for some reason, they do not really expose kids to this more, I don't know how to call the design professions are not really easily taught in the K-12 system, and or readily taught, rather. And I think with our professionals that are interested in teaching, we have to reach out earlier.
I just wanted to echo Laura's point about equity. I've had this conversation with a lot of my friends in the field, and one thing that we talk about is that equity is an act that ultimately will lead to justice and diversity, as opposed to the other way around. And I feel like it's very easy to try and skip that step and try and incorporate people in something that's not just or equitable to begin with. So you need to really be honest and transparent, like Deirdre was saying, but you also need to be welcoming and understand that this isn't just a result of one person's actions or one firm's actions, but a lot of people have been looking for a more equal place. And we all have some role in making it unequal. So we all will have some role in making it equal in the future. So I think the most important thing is to just make sure that everybody's on an equal playing field when we have that initial discussion.
I think too, just thinking about the scale of the workplace that you're in, luckily I work at a smaller firm, and so the conversations around equity and diversity and inclusion can happen in a really authentic way, because we can all sit around a table or a Zoom call or in a park and talk about them. And so I think if there's ways to take some of that learning and translate it to some of the larger organizations, I'd be happy to, share more. But I think too, just having the privilege to work at a firm that values these things as a part of their staples, is a reason why I chose to work for, the organization that I'm working for. But I would also just say scale, I think, plays a big part into how these conversations are forwarded, and authenticity as well.
Thank you. It is 10 o'clock, and so I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us today and being so open about the work that you do. We're proud of the work that you do, and we want to support you on our platforms. I also want to thank everyone who joined in today. Again, this is recorded, so you can share this with friends and family and your colleagues. And we encourage you to join for our last episode of Diversity Through Design, which will take place on November 5th. And that topic is Community Alliance. So please reach out to us if you have any questions, or you want us to connect you to any of our panelists to get more information about the amazing work that they do. And we thank you for being a part of this webinar. We thank you for supporting IIDA and YAF, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.